Okay, class, today we're talking about linked lists, another data structure. We already learned about stacks, we already learned about queues, but today we're going to learn about linked lists. Last, we'll learn about trees, but we'll leave that for next week. Okay, so what's a linked list? A linked list is basically a list made up of these nodes, and they're all linked together. The two parts of our nodes, this is a node, for example, and the node is made up of data and then another part of it which is a reference to our node, to another node, if one exists. Now, if we just have one node, it's the data and nothing stored here, which is null. In this case, if I have data, next will refer to a new node. Okay, it points to a new node, and if it exists, then it points to the node, and then node.data is what's in here, and node.next is null. And at the end of the linked list, you always know that there's nothing linked to it that makes it the end. Therefore, it is null. So before we go to the next slide, I know you just got a peek of it. Let's just build our node class. Now we have two parts. In this case, it's an int, and we're going to call it data. And we're also going to have a node, and we're going to call it next. I know I didn't call it public or private yet. I just did it to make it a little bit easier, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so next we want to build a constructor. And how do we do that? Public node int data. This dot data equals whatever data was sent in, and this dot next equals null, which is nothing. Okay, and you know what? Let's just make a toString. Public string toString, and we're going to return integer dot toString, and we're going to call this dot data. So if I ever call a node, it's just going to print up from another class. It's just going to print up whatever data is stored in there. That's all I want to print up with the node. Now, let's go back to our slide. Our linked list is made up of a bunch of nodes, or nothing, but it starts from a head. So a linked list will have a head, and a head will point to a node. And the node will store data, and we'll have a next. And if we add something else, it'll be stored in as an object, and then next, and then an object, or data, and then next. And then at the end of our linked list, it'll always point to null. So how do we do that? Well, we go to our linked list. I already have something called linkedlist.java, class linked list. And basically, our private node is head. Now to start, we don't have a node. So if I create a linked list, I'm not even going to create a constructor for this. What you should know is when you create a linked list, you basically build a linked list, and what's stored in it is null.